All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you guys for joining in. As a reminder, before we get started, we want to encourage you to go ahead and turn your cameras off and stay on mute, and that way you guys can kind of sit in the background and watch. We will have a Q&A at the end. We'll invite you to jump back in at that point if you'd like to turn your camera on and your volume. But hey, thanks for joining. We've got a big group tonight. We've got a lot of folks that have joined us from different walks of life and different groups of folks. We're going to kind of talk about that in the very beginning before we introduce our special guest and kind of talk about what tonight is all about. But my wife Leslie is here with us, and she is going to kick us off in prayer.
My phone.
Join us in prayer, please.
All right, let us pray. Father God, we just come to you tonight. We thank you for this time that you've given, that I believe you orchestrated long ago. Lord, I thank you for each and every person here that's committed to be here tonight. I know we're all busy, and I thank you for each person that's here. Lord, I pray that you would prepare our hearts. I pray that you would speak through Julie tonight, as I know you will. And we ask that your Holy Spirit lead us, guide us, direct us, heal us, Lord, and teach us more about how to be Christ-like tonight through this. In your name we pray. Amen.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we get started, let me remind everybody, go ahead and turn your cameras off if you've got it on, and make sure you're on mute. I'm going to look through. I think I can help you stop some of the video if you'd like. That way you guys can kind of sit back and not worry about having to be on camera. But thanks again, everybody, for joining. Hopefully you can see our screen okay. We've got a couple of placeholders and a couple of little things we're going to start off with before we introduce Julie. This Learn from a Pro, what is this? You may be thinking, what is this and what have I gotten myself into and what is this meeting all about? Well, we want to give you just a little bit of background on that before we jump in. Going back to the beginning of this year, many of you know, we run an organization called Step by Step Golf. And through the golf ministry, we had a lot of kind of cool stuff happening this year on the golf course. But Leslie and I talked through this, and we prayed through some things, and we really wanted to grow the ministry side of what we do and make more ministry activities and opportunities available. And what you guys are participating in tonight is something we call Learn from the Pro. This was one of the initiatives that we started. It happens 4 times a year. And it's intended to be a big gathering with a subject matter expert, someone that could bring content in that's far beyond anything we know about and that really challenges us and transforms us to think through things differently. And we are fortunate to have tonight a very, very special guest that's going to do that for us. Before we jump into that, I do have a slide here I want to show you, and this will give you kind of an overview of what we're going to talk about. You may be thinking, what is this step-by-step ministry? What do these guys do? I wanted to kind of start with this statement here at the top. If you can see the screen, you'll be able to read it. And if not, I'm going to read it out so everybody can hear it that may not be seeing the screen. All right, make sure everybody's on mute. There you go. Thank you. All right, so here's what it says. We encourage others to follow Jesus and equip them along the way. That's what the ministry really is about. And we do that in 4 ways. There's really 3 kind of components we think a lot about. Our tagline kind of says 1 step at a time. That's a big part of what we do. We encourage others to follow Jesus and equip them along the way, 1 step at a time. We believe we have resources and opportunities to help people study the Word through devotionals and videos and a bookstore that's available. We believe we have resources and opportunities to help encourage people to pray and to pray to God. We have a monthly prayer gathering. We have a way in which people can submit prayer requests. We have opportunities for people involved in the ministry to become prayer leaders. So we want to help people study. We want to help people pray. Another one is connect. We want to help people connect with other followers through a mentor program, through service projects. We pray one day that a mission trip or discipleship groups would be something that would be part of this ministry as well. And we believe that those 3 things, when you combine study, pray, and connect, you give yourself the best opportunity to grow. And as it says on the screen, when we say grow, we mean becoming like Christ. So as Leslie and I think about the ministry, we think about it in those components: study, pray, connect. And those three things together lead to growth. Tonight, the Learn from a Pro is part of our study initiative. It's something that we believe we can do to help you study and to help reach into the Word. And Julie's going to bring that in a way that that hopefully some things you've not heard before and really challenge our thinking on some things. Okay, so that's kind of an overview. A lot of you came to us tonight through Step by Step Golf. A lot of you are here tonight. You've been part of health and wellness seminars in the past. We also have a lot of friends and family and neighbors that have joined us tonight. And whatever the reason is that you're here tonight, we appreciate it. We thank you. We've prayed for you. And we believe God is going to bless you and bless us tonight through this message. So without any further ado, let's get started. I do want to encourage you to remain on mute, keep your cameras off. Julie will present for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we will have Q&A at the end. We actually already have received several questions some of you guys have sent in. There's an email address on the screen, sbsgolfdirector@gmail.com. If you want to write that down or maybe take a screenshot of that with your phone, or you guys may have it. Those that have emailed with us already probably have this email address. If you are an expert on Zoom, you probably know how to drop a question in the chat, and you can label it to where it only comes to the moderators so that it's a confidential question. And any questions you guys send in that we share with Julie when it's over, we will do that anonymously. So don't worry about us sharing names. We want to make sure you have a safe place for asking your questions. So feel free to drop in your questions. I think as Julie goes through her presentation, will spark more questions. Please, she is willing to hang around with us after the talk tonight and take on your questions. I really encourage you to do that. So let's get down to business. Leslie has just a great testimony really of how Julie has impacted her life. And I think Leslie's got some notes here she wants to share with us about our special guest.
Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. This has been a long time in the making, actually longer than even Julie realizes, but a friend of mine introduced me to Julie's material, I'd say probably 3 or 4 months ago, and I personally have done a few Bible studies and read her book. And when I tell you her concepts are life-changing, they're life-changing. They're simple, but they're applicable, and just it's really the gospel in our everyday lives that we've kind of missed along the way somehow. So I am super excited. So let me tell you a little bit about Julie. Julie is a co-founder of Restore Counseling Ministries, along with Jennifer Irvin. Back in 2012, they founded this ministry. She received her BS degree from University of Florida and her master's degree in counseling and psychology from Troy University. She's been in private practice as a pastoral counselor since 1999. She has written several Bible studies and a book called Unhitching from the Crazy Train. And I'm hoping at the end of this that she'll share some of those resources with you because they are phenomenal. Julie works with adult individuals facing a variety of issues such as codependency, infidelity, disillusionment with God, depression, spiritual, emotional, physical, and verbal abuse, and parenting through the various seasons of life. And Julie's desire is that the teaching and counseling of Restore Ministries will be used to help men, women, and children come to understand the radical and restorative impact of the gospel in their everyday lives and relationships. So I'm super excited to have her here tonight. Julie, I cannot thank you enough for preparing for this and for just being a part of our ministry. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Julie Sparkman.
Hey, y'all. It is great to be with you. I guess I'm with you. All I know is that I'm sitting here talking to my computer, which is really, really strange, but welcome to the world of COVID. So the beginning of our talk tonight is you can achieve anything as long as you are willing to work hard enough, which is really the words behind the American dream. And they seem so inspirational. And really, they do elicit real motivation, don't they? It's a drive that can propel us to our aspirations. A similar assumption that we are the creator of our destiny is reflected in the quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. Such seeming control, it can initially make us feel really empowered, but the high cost it causes is commiserate with the crash into despair when we hit reality. Because if the past year of COVID has taught us anything, it's this. There are forces beyond us, and unlike what Mr. Emerson says, those forces do not always cooperate with our desires. And it's at that point that we are faced with the reality that our good choices, our dedication to a goal, does not guarantee its attainment. What then? The impact of COVID on mental health of our world has been absolutely devastating. Every counselor I know in Birmingham is slammed well beyond capacity. Anxiety, suicide, substance abuse, domestic violence, they're at all-time high. And we're told that this is the result of loss of jobs, loved ones, schooling choices, the list is endless. But there is a deeper loss that underlies all of this. And that's the loss of the false notion that we are in control, that A plus B always equals C. And this is the scariest reality of our time. It exposes what we might have been basing our lives on all along and inadvertently teaching others to do the same. So my aim in this brief talk tonight is that we would think more deeply about what truly motivates us and the impact that that has on our personal well-being and on our relationships. And we're going to look at this through 4 lenses. Number 1, what's the picture that you're going for? Number 2, what's the difference between a goal and a desire? 3, discerning your role versus your responsibility. And 4, how's that working for you? Now, I don't claim that at the end of our time together that you're going to leave with a neat set of answers, because remember, I'm a counselor and they always have more questions than answers. But more what I want you to leave with is that you would have a good framework to begin to think through more of why you do what you do. And even more important, to address how well that's working for you. Because true change, it doesn't begin with answers. It really begins with better questions. So let's begin with our first question. What is the picture that you have in your mind's eye of what life should be for you? Now that picture, it's going to be comprised of many things, and it changes through the seasons of your life, but usually it involves elements like good health, enjoyable work, close friends, strong family relationships, and of course, if you have children, it includes your desires for them, that they would fulfill their potential, marry well, and provide you with lots of grandchildren. Now, be honest about that picture, because it's real, and it's also much of what drives you. And the desires that you have are not wrong. As a matter of fact, those desires are part of how God created you. You were designed for a life in Eden, where everything outside of man cooperated with the desires within him. And that is the very definition of paradise. And even though we no longer live in paradise, we still somehow have a memory of it imprinted in our design. And that's where those pictures come from. Now think of every element that's in your picture, that career, that relationship, that title that you're after for yourself or maybe for your child. How much of it is within your personal realm of control? Even if you are willing to work tenaciously, can you make even one element of your picture a reality? No. Every element in your picture contains something outside of your control, people or circumstances that must cooperate in order for it to become a reality, no matter how hard you're trying. And it's far too easy that without our even being aware of it, there are points in which our very good desires, well, they turn into demands. And that is where the problem begins. We focus all of our energy on those pictures, and they grow bigger and bigger in importance until what we want becomes what we need and the standard by which we define our lives. We even answer the common question, how are you doing, by how closely reality is to our pictures, like, I'm great, got called back for the second interview, or awful, he didn't even rank, and now his scholarship is probably not going to happen. All too often, our day is really only as good as the degree to which it matches our picture. We have, therefore, attached our emotional, spiritual, sometimes even our physical well-being to something outside of our control. And the result? Very significant anxiety, which is often well disguised behind a mask of impossibly high personal performance. Or, as your picture involves the cooperation of others, we can become controlling drivers. Again, disguised behind such phrases as, this is my personal favorite with my kids, I only want the best for you. Controlling and corralling others, as well as incessantly driving ourselves, is the result of making desires into goals. And good desires, the picture, no matter how worthy they are, they make bad goals. Let me explain by defining both terms. A goal is something wanted that can be achieved, if I am willing to work hard enough. Contrast that to a desire, something wanted that cannot be achieved without the cooperation of circumstances or people outside of our control. I'm going to say that again because I always get asked to say it again. A goal, something wanted that can be achieved if I'm willing to work hard enough. And a desire is something wanted that cannot be achieved without the cooperation of circumstances or people outside of our control. Now, I want you to think about the elements, those various elements in your picture. A great marriage, or securing a golf scholarship to an excellent school. Is that a desire? Are those desires, or are they goals? Well, the way you'd answer that is, do you have complete control? Or do you need the cooperation of someone or something else? At most, you have, on your best day, 50% control over both of those, which means it's a desire and not a goal. And when you confuse the two, you give another person control over whether or not you meet your goal. And you know what the result of that is? Corralling, controlling, manipulation, and very significant frustration. Speaking of controlling and frustration, let me tell you about an aspect of my picture, a good desire that morphed into a bad goal. My husband and I are now empty nesters, so my picture has been evolving a little bit, and I decided this spring that I would include in my picture that we would become, in the Sparkman household, healthy eaters. Now, I never just bothered to discuss this with my husband because it was so obviously a good idea. I was convinced that he would be on board. But just last night, as I was eating grilled chicken, he announced that he was headed to Burger King, which, as you know, has a very limited healthy menu. Now, I had already been helping him with his choices by stocking the fridge with healthy options, which he ignored. My subtle manipulation to get him into his picture was not working. So last night, I went into full-on guilt. After all, because, you know, he was blocking my goal, even though, by the way, he had never agreed to it. And so I whined at him, but aren't you even interested in trying to eat better? To which he answered very honestly, no. And right there and then, I was confronted with the reality that I had made a good desire into a bad goal. So it's been my experience, both personally and professionally, that we are often really unaware of the degree to which we have hitched our well-being to our pictures until they come crashing down. And then we fall into despair, like I did last night. Most of the time, this is what brings people into my office. They bought into the lie that if you work hard enough, you can achieve that picture. They've even given themselves to that achievement, only to find that it was a promise that could not deliver. And then they're left with two options when that picture wasn't realized. Inner shame that they didn't do it well enough, or outer blame at the people or circumstances that didn't come through as they should have. Usually, it's a toxic combination of both of them. So does that sound familiar to you? Inner shame, outer blame, does that resonate? Is that the direction that you tend to turn when things don't work as you had hoped? Well, that's a symptom that you are hitched to that picture and to the belief that perseverance alone will guarantee it. Here's when we start to see that what began as a good way of encouraging and motivating, it can easily turn into a very heavy weight. And we have actually come to believe that heaviness and pressure is a normal part of life, even that pressure is necessary if anything is to be achieved. But how is that working for you? How's that working for your relationships? It doesn't. A basic rule of effective management is that you never give an employee responsibility without commiserate authority, because to do so is a morale and ultimately a performance destroyer. We break that rule with ourselves every time that we take responsibility for something we can't control, and we confuse our role with our responsibility. We do have responsibilities which can translate into really good goals. While I cannot guarantee a great marriage despite my best efforts, I do have a role in cultivating a great marriage by focusing on my part as a wife. That's where I center my goals. I can't guarantee that even if I spend a good portion of my time and finances providing my child with lessons and tournament opportunities, that he or she will even want to continue playing golf, much less securing a scholarship. However, while I don't have the responsibility for where my child ends up, I do play a role in that, and that is to offer him or her opportunities, most of all guidance, which he will hopefully experience as support for him as a person rather than as a performer, reminding him of the truth that none of us were designed to bear the weight of outcomes that are beyond my control. So just think about it for a moment. What would life be like if we released responsibility for those things that we can't control? Honestly, for a lot of us, it might even create more anxiety, because if I'm not in control, who is? Even knowing the futility of it, I will hold on to control unless and until I come to believe that the one who created me really truly is more trustworthy than my own best efforts. Because if making life work is about me, I really am in huge trouble. And this is not a poor self-image. This is just good, plain common sense. It's reality. The anxiety that many of us try to cover attests to the fact that we know this. We cannot pull it off. And there had better be someone stronger than us, beyond us, who can. To a degree, we've always known it. But now that knowledge has turned into experience as our world has literally been brought to its knees by a deadly pandemic. If it's about us and our personal abilities, we are doomed. But God has covered that. John 3:16 in the Message says, "This is how much God loved the world. He gave his son, his one and only son. And this is why, so that no one need be destroyed. By believing in him, anyone can have a whole and lasting life." God didn't go to all the trouble of sending his son merely to point an accusing finger, telling the world how bad it was. He came to help, to put the world right again. Anyone who trusts in him is acquitted. Anyone who refuses to trust in him has long since been under the death sentence without even knowing it. This is the gospel. If it's about us and our best efforts, we are doomed. But thank God, it's not on us, but on Christ. This truth, just even as I say it, I don't feel empowered. I feel relieved. And that relief of that weight off of me, it infuses me with life and energy to do exactly what it is that he placed me on this earth to do. My greatest and my highest goal, which is to show each and every person that he brings me into contact with, I mean from the Walmart cashier to my very own child and grandchild. My goal is to reflect who he is and how he loves by the way I am and by the way that I love. This is a goal. Think about it. This is a goal that cannot be blocked by any person nor any circumstance. And that is true freedom. And that is the single most motivating truth I will ever hear from my own soul, and is the single most motivating truth preeminently that we must tell others. So with that, I am going to open it up for questions and answers. Todd?
Julie, thank you. I hope that's a challenging word and an encouraging word at the same time to those listening in. Folks, please be encouraged to jump in with questions. We have a few that we've received. I'm going to start off with those, Julie, if that's okay. And then those of you that maybe have additional questions, feel free to jump in here in just a moment if you wish, or to send an email to us and we will read those out for you. But Julie, we had the first one that came in was, you mentioned early on that A plus B doesn't always equal C. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Mm-hmm. A plus B equals C is what I call the theology of good choices. If you do the right things, you can expect the right results. And it is inadvertently preached in our schools, in our pulpits, and around our dinner tables. When we talk more about the choices that we make, then we talk about what God has done for us. We have put back up on our shoulders two things. Number one, it's about us. And number two, there's a promise there. If we do the right thing, we have entered into, if you will, a contract with God. I do the right thing and he comes through for me. That's a contract. But with Christ, the contract was abolished and turned into a covenant. Why? Because we couldn't keep the contract. But now here's the thing with the covenant. The covenant is, it is now no longer in my power. It's now done for me. This doesn't mean that my choices are not important. That is not what it means. It means that my choices are not what's writing my story, because according to Psalm 139, my story was already written, including my choices, good or bad, they have already been written and included in the ultimate outcome that God has for us. So my issue with that A plus B equals C is that, boy, does that end up a lot of people in phenomenal disillusionment, especially when you get to be my age. And the proof is in the pudding, and sometimes it didn't turn out exactly like the book said that it would.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does, yes. We've got a lot of questions, so I'm going to fire through a couple of these. Let's see. The next one says, you said we hitch our well-being to our picture, but our picture is full of confusion between goals and desires.
Okay. Yeah.
Where I think what the question is getting at is can you talk about some of the most common things that we as people confuse? Give us some common examples.
Mm-hmm. Okay. First thing I want to say is this: your picture is your desires. It is not your goals. Your picture is what you want, almost all of which is out of control. Elements for me right now. I have in my picture that I have a close relationship with my kids, that I see my grandchildren a lot, that my husband and I are closely connected, that my job is going well. I'm giving myself well to ministry. You understand where I'm going there? These are all desires that I have. If I could magic wand my life, this is what I have in my picture, in my mind's eye, of the way that I would desire life to be. Okay, so that's a desire. Now, what was your question? Contrast desire to a goal?
Yeah, and this question is really kind of looking for some common examples, maybe things you kind of deal with on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis that people may be confused.
Mm-hmm. The ones that all of those that I just said are things that are pretty much always in everybody's picture. Gotcha. I mean, seriously, even kids. Okay. Yeah. Now, here's the thing though. When we make those good desires into goals, what that means is it's not just what I long for. It's not just what I want. It's what I need. And when it becomes what I need, when it becomes the way that I say how well my life is working, now we know that we're into trouble. Now we know that I'm going to drive myself and I'm going to drive everybody else to achieve that picture. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. The one Leslie and I were talking about before, I think you used one about marriage. So say the one about you, the goal or the desire is to have a great marriage, but that's not something you can control because there's another person involved. Did I say that correctly?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. And again, I want you to Imagine I deal with weekly, if not daily, disillusioned, heartbroken people that are coming into my office saying, I did it right. I worked hard. I read the
This is
books.
that fellowship thing for our tournament.
Can y'all hear
They wanted
me?
me to join the Zoom call, but they can't hear me.
Hey, Justin, if you could hit mute for us, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did it all right. I have loved my husband well,
They could hear me.
and he left me for a younger version of myself.
No.
So that's an example of a good desire that if I make that desire into a goal, you see, I've just failed and I'm horribly disillusioned. But instead, what my goal needs to be is that I need to be what God wants me to be as a wife. By the way, as I pursue that, as I pursue obedience to Christ as my first thing, second things, this is C.S. Lewis, tend to fall in line like my marriage. That is not a guarantee. But if I make it a guarantee, if I mainly go after a good marriage, I'm probably going to lose both a good marriage and myself. If I make it my guarantee to obey the Father, the chances are higher. Again, there's not a guarantee, but the chances are higher as I give myself to obedience. The rest follows.
Would you relate that, Julie, to also a dating relationship, or maybe even as an employee of a company? So, for example, to translate that to a dating relationship, instead of the goal being I desire a great relationship, because that also involves someone else, the goal is to become a great person or the most desirable person to be dated, or whatever, however you would best say that.
Right. I make it my aim to love well. Why? Because that's exactly what Christ commanded me to do.
Gotcha.
So again, you notice mainly what I keep kind of pushing back over and over is your central goal tied to your central reason that you were created, which is living life out of obedience to Christ. Pragmatically, what does that mean? That means every single person that comes into my life, I have the same calling on my life that Christ has on his. Why did God send Christ? So that people could look at Christ and get God. See, they could understand it. There he was in flesh and blood. Christ leaves in flesh and blood. Now that's us. Our goal is that because someone came into contact with us, they could maybe glimpse just a tiny bit better. What does the heart of God look like? Just a tiny bit better.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Julie, let me just clarify, because I think this concept is new to a lot of people. So you're saying that the fact that we have a picture in our heads is not wrong. Those desires are not wrong in and of themselves, but we have to be careful to make sure that we set goals that only include what we have control over in our hopes of attaining that picture, knowing that we live in a fallen world and that we may not attain that picture. Is that kind of what you're saying? Is that so? I guess what I'm saying,
yes.
come in, they've got this picture in their head. That's not wrong. You're not telling us to get rid of the picture. You're telling us to make sure that our goals are not to attain that picture. Our goals are to stay focused on us becoming more Christ-like. Is that right?
Right. And if you will, entrusting that picture to the Father, to me, that's the greatest form of faith and trust, is not to say, oh, I don't want anything. I'm just into Jesus. I don't want anything. I just want God. Well, first off, that's not true, and God knows it. But I just want you to think about your kid, your child. You want to know what your child's desires are. That doesn't mean that you're going to grant them, but it is essential to you to know them, because when your child shares that with you, you feel like your child has trusted you and engaged you. And so, yeah, the Father, not only is that right, but that's a critical part of me engaging in trust with the Father. But it is an opening of my hand. It's not even, I can't even use the word, it's bringing that to the altar as if, to be perfectly honest, I'm letting the whole thing go. I'm not. I always hold my picture in my hand. I always hold my picture in my heart. What am I doing with my hands though? Are they like this or are they like this? But it is always there with me. And that's part of this side of heaven. And that is not a wrong thing at all.
Gotcha.
Very good.
But this is so good, by the way, Julie. But I know we have over 30 people on this audience tonight, and I know we have folks that have recently lost loved ones. We've had folks that are in job transitions. We have folks that have recently sold a company, and career direction is changing. We've got young folks, we've got college folks on the call with us tonight that are dealing with the challenges of all that goes with college and dating relationships and that sort of thing. And we've got single adults on the call. I think this is really hitting on a lot of great topics. I'm going to read one more question we received earlier, and then I'm going to go to the audience here and see if anyone's got one they would like to share. Here's a really good one, Julie. How do you discern whether repeated disappointments and discouraging outcomes concerning something you want really badly is God's way of telling you it isn't his plan for your life, or do you keep trying?
Yeah. Does anybody want to be me right now? This is one I'm wishing that I had taken that online plumber course.
Yeah.
How do I discern that? This is going to sound, at the risk of being overly simplistic, I know what the will of God is when it happens. But just because it's not happening, that doesn't mean it's not his will. How do I discern what his will is? If it doesn't specifically state it in the scripture, you're supposed to go for this particular job, you're supposed to buy this company, you're supposed to do this major. Mercy, I don't know. I think I would ask this question, and that is your desire for that higher than your desire for whatever it is that God wants you to do? And I don't think that God's playing games with us, and like there's this one little narrow pathway that we got to figure out, and we got to be right and get that little narrow pathway. I think if we have a soft heart before God, that's all he's asking but sometimes he only shines one pinprick of light ahead and ahead and ahead and ahead. That's not an answer. I mainly want to say, take hope. You're not doing it wrong. You're not in sin because you still love that goal. You still long for that goal, but are you open-handed? But sometimes I've had to say to the Father, I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to take a step. I'm going to seek to discern if this is you, and I need you to make it really obvious. I need you to slam the door in my face or write it up on the wall when I get to that point. But other times I don't. I just take the next step and I see what he does. And I know that that's not answering the question, but the truth is, I think God purposefully doesn't answer those questions of the intricacies of his will, because if he put that in the scripture, that's really all we do. Okay, great, I got it now. And then we would live separate. But with this person, I even think about this question ruminating in their minds, that's a way that causes them to lean into the Father in ways that they might not do if they had the sureness that what they're doing is right. Because remember, we are never in more grave danger of making an error than when we are absolutely sure that what we're doing is right. So I think what the Father wants from us is soft hearts. Aside from that, I think it's pretty wide.
You got to say that last part again. Say that last part of what you just said one more time, please. You said
that's the rule with me. People ask me that. I never can say that. What did I say?
We've got it recorded.
Okay. Soft heart. That's what I would pay more attention to. And I know this is very frustrating, so I'm just going to say that in advance. I believe that God is more interested in our soft heart than he is our specific step that we take.
Gotcha.
We can live a whole lot more bold and free than we are living. I picked this up from this person. If they even have the question, Jesus, what are you saying? I'm like, you're probably in the right place right there.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I don't know what to do. I know. Take a step.
Gotcha.
But should I keep stepping until you don't feel like that anymore, or the door slams in your face?
Gotcha.
Which, Julie, that reminds me of your most recent study about how God cares what's on the inside of us more than he cares about what we're doing. From the inside out, that recent study you just cares about our heart more than he cares about our actions. And usually one will lead to the other, but that was a huge impact on me, because a lot of times we do get stuck with, what do? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. When really, I think what you've taught me is you just need to go before the Lord and be real and he'll meet you where you are, but he cares more about your heart to obey him more than the specific outcome. Correct?
Yeah. And I believe that I just think about the father heart of God. If a child would be so afraid, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? And if you love the kid, you're going to say, it's okay. It's okay. The very fact that you're even asking me and we're in communion, it's okay. I've got you. I've got you either way you go. You can't go wrong on this one. It's okay.
That's so good, Julie. That's so good, because I think we see God sometimes as this tyrant or this rule, this God that's full of rules, and he's going to strike us down if we make the wrong move or if we say the wrong thing or misrepresent him. And I think your passion is we've missed who God really is in the process. That's way more than we give him credit for, that's
yeah.
Julie, we're gonna. I want to take a minute to kind of open it to the group here. If anyone maybe has not sent in a question, but they have a question, let me remind everyone. Julie has given us a full hour of her time, which takes us right up to 8:30 Central Time. We do want to respect that, so we're gonna have a hard stop at 8:30 Central Time or before. If you guys are online here and need to log off or have somewhere else to go, obviously feel free to do that, but we will hang on for a few more questions, and then we'll respect Julie's time and go ahead and end it by 8:30 or a few minutes before. So with that said, let me go to the crowd here. If you guys have been listening to this and have a question, feel free to take yourself off of mute and turn your camera on if you wish, and jump in with a question.
Miss Julie, Todd, Leslie, this is Stanton Roberts. Would this be a good time to interject a question in?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right in.
Well, howdy, Miss Julie. My name is Stanton. I've been working with Todd and Leslie now for quite a while. They've been absolutely pleasant. And I've heard about this interview coming up, so I went ahead and checked out some of your work. The most standout one would be one of your books, which is Finding Rest in a World You Can't Control, which has been fantastic. I really like your conjunction between praying and kind of leaving things in the hands of God, but also trying to take ownership for what you have to do. My question is, which this would hopefully relate to some of the college students and also some of the older adults that, are going through major life changes. Soon as how I'm not a parent, I can't speak on my father's behalf, but I know the pain that he has gone through with me. What would you recommend you do if you know you're on the right path in life? You're trying to do everything you can, and yet that human aspect still comes into play where you still have these little faults. And at some point, you feel like you're doing everything right. And at the very last second, something gets dumped on you, something unexpected happens, and you can't quite seem to crest over that hill to success, whether that is just getting to the next step in your plan or actually fulfilling what you want to do. You're doing everything just about properly, but always at the last minute, there seems to be something that throws you back off that path. Is there a lesson in there for God that's telling you to be able to let go and say, hey, you need to trust a little bit more? Or maybe he's pushing you in a way that you need to gain some kind of internal strength, something that he's trying to teach you without, as you said, revealing the answer to you directly, something for you to figure out.
Okay. So here's my first question. Now, see, this, and now after you, by the way, you brave soul, no one else is going to bother asking any questions, because I'm going to ask you a question back. Tell me what you mean when you say, you said something like doing everything right, doing it right, something like that. Tell me what you mean by that.
So, for instance, I have been through school. I've gotten my collegiate work done, and I've actually gone on and progressed myself through master's degree. And all of that is in hopes for a better job. Upon finding that better job, well, here comes the part with lack of experience, which everybody has to go through. You have to learn how to sell yourself. You also have to find the right company in the right time. In recent years, maybe COVID hits. Maybe everything's shut down and nobody's really hiring for what your expertise is. In my instance, I've made some severe strides going forward towards professional golf and to a childhood dream of mine. I had the military cut out for me early. Golf ended up being a really great therapy for me. So I'm like, okay, well, my second love is there. Took that as God saying no to the military, just as my parents did for so many years. Well, now that we're going through golf, there have been a series of major setbacks, whether that is sponsorship, whether that is, in my eyes, keeping my personal life clear. In golf, I've kind of related that as keeping the 5 pillars, which is your short game, your trouble shots. Sorry, Todd. Your fairway game and your tee game in control. That all relates to life of keeping your faith, your family, yourself, your friends, and your hobbies in check. So going through each of those, there's always been one setback right as you feel like you're going to crest everything. There's always been a setback to hold you back. For most people, I think they relate that to finding a job or maybe even making amends with their parents for all the screw ups that they've had. You almost get to the end of it. One little thing pops up, you can't solve it. And now everything's kind of in question. You're like, oh, I'm so close, but I can't get over that.
Yeah. So, who says that you're the one that's supposed to get over that? Because it sounds as if you got a pretty good plan of exactly what steps look like. But regardless of your plan, you never were the one that was going to get over that. I think, though, when things are going better, we have a sense, and I don't want to go too far with this, but we have more of a sense of control and maybe God's approval and God's stamp, maybe, of yes. And then all of a sudden we slam into something. So the first thing I want to say is, it's not your job to get over that. That's his job to pull you over that, through that, or use that to stop you right where you are. And I can't really answer which one of those it is. But there are times in which what we consider to be a setback is the Father not being unkind and saying, well, that's because you need to trust me more. You need to grow your faith. But more, when I think of the things that the Father has stopped me from, it was to release me in kindness of, this is on you and you're going with your best guess and it's on me. And this setback is the thing I'm using to draw you close to me, not to whack you over the head, but to pull you in close to me. So I would consider it to be a setback to what you saw, yes, but it's never, this is the other, there are no setbacks to the Father. You are right on track. You're exactly where he wants you to be. And could that be an invitation to move more into him in, if you will, some degree of cluelessness, which is a really, really uncomfortable word, especially for men and especially in the Western world. But I think that's a part of sonship versus being somebody that God could be proud of, but that you would learn to live as a son, who he will pull over that obstacle, if that's what he allows. Long answer. Does that make sense, Stanton?
Yes, ma'am, it does. And I don't want to take up any more of your time or other people's time, but I greatly appreciate that.
Awesome. Stan, thank you for asking that question. Julie, we've got one more that has come in, and then I'd like to save just a few moments at the very end so you can talk a little bit about how people can find you and resources and things like that. So here's one more that we just had come in the chat. Can you ask Julie if she can, and if you want to respond to this, this is about scripture, Julie, if you have a scripture reference that you want to send later, I can get that out to the group, or if you have something off the cuff, we can certainly share it now. But here, can you ask Julie if she can mention scripture that I can look to when I find myself dealing with inner shame, and then again when I find myself using outer blame, like scripture that can help get me back in a better space or mindset?
Both shame and blame have to do with us believing, again, that it really is about us and we're not up to the task, which, by the way, is half true. We aren't up to the task. I've used the term before, the phrase before, I am incompetent and unashamed. And I think that that's what the Father's desire for us would be, is that we don't feel like competent people. We embrace we are incompetent, and we are not ashamed of that, because we are sons and daughters. We are children. We're supposed to need him. But true, for some of you, there's deep darkness. There's things that you really, really deeply regret. Remember the difference between shame. Shame is not I did something wrong. Shame is I am wrong. And so to me, the core of verses that would refer to back to combating shame would be any verses that talk about, the essence of it is, well, thank God it's not me, but Christ. I will rather boast about my weaknesses, is what Paul said. So anything that talks about my identity in Christ is what, if you will, pulls me out of my sadness, my regret. These are things, sadness and regret, these are things that we're going to have because of past sin. That's an aspect of it. But sadness and regret are not the same thing as shame. Shame is you're fundamentally defective. And here's the thing. Because of Christ, because of what he did for me, that is now a lie. I am fundamentally, I now have the spirit and the heart of Christ within me. I'm not living out of that all the time. And I'm responsible for that. But that stuff, that sin that I do, that is not what identifies me. What identifies me is my core, my inner person, which I'm not basing this off of somebody's good performance that I like them. I'm saying, according to Ezekiel 36:26, you have a new heart. Whether you live out of your new heart or not is your choice. But regardless of your choice, you do not ever change your desire, ever. That is your desire. That's your core desire, is the same core desire as Christ has, which is to please his Father, to bring him glory. Again, I know that saying that is kind of like I always say, it's like telling me that I'm a size 5 true blonde. That does not fit. And again, I'm not looking at you and your performance to determine that. I'm looking right to what the word says. And for me, that is something that I am choosing to hold on to. When I don't, I'm getting distracted and naming myself by my performance, which is the antithesis of the gospel. And which is not to say, again, that my performance is not important. But if I didn't believe that Christ is what defines me, I couldn't risk looking at the reality of my performance because it would crush me too much. It would bring me to shame, right? But the cure for shame is, to me, the recognition of, oh, thank God, you have been redesigned. And generally, shame is becoming because you're defining the very core of your being by your actions. Which if we flipped that and we said, I'm great because look at all I've done. Oh, that's when we all know, oh, that's anti-gospel. That's not right at all. But you see, that's the exact same gospel as, and I'm awful because of look at what I've done.
Right.
When I sin, I am doing that which is not in my nature, which is why it feels the way that it feels. That is not who I am.
Julie, the note that I took here, and I want you to tell me if I'm thinking of this right, because this is extremely powerful, what you just said there. When we look at ourselves, no matter if we do things really, really good or really, really poorly, you know, it's easy to see when we do things really, really good and we boast about that as prideful. But it almost, I think if I hear you right, even blame and shame is pride as well, even though it appears to be sort of self-deprecating, and it's equally prideful as the things we're proud of because it's still about us. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, that's exactly what it is. And yet, for me to even go to the Father, for him to get my identity imprinted in me, I have to learn how to be a daughter. So I want to be honest and say, when I have done something deeply regretful from my past or from my present, I'm not singing, you know, I'm in Jesus, he's in me, and able even at that moment at points to live that reality out. I am begging Jesus, would you please, by faith and by a miracle, would you help me to see myself the way that the word says? Would you train my eyes? Because again, I don't want to be harsh and say that's pride, though it is. But I do want us to know that even us being able to get our identity is something that the Father has to do for us. I preach the gospel all day long. I preach identity in Christ all day long. It is so frustrating to me to be one that speaks it, teaches it, and yet recognizes the limit of it in my own heart. If Jesus doesn't teach me that, but in the moments of my greatest failure, if the gospel can be real to me, then it's holding, if you will. And if the gospel, what am I talking about when I say the gospel? That my security and my significance are stable. If it's not, then I just have to go to the Father again and say, make it real to me again. You got to whisper it in my ear, or send somebody else to whisper it in my ear for me.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you, Julie, for sharing your time with our group and your expertise. Would you take just a final moment and let our folks know how to contact you? If you've got a website or where to find your books, how can people find your work?
Yeah. Our website is restore-ministries.org, but you can ultimately find me if you just Google my name. Stuff comes up. On our website, there is a store. On the store, you can buy either in DVD form or, audio download. I never understand any of those things, but 4 different Bible studies. There's one called Idol Addiction. There's one called Unhitching from the Crazy Train. One called 6 Weeks to Sane Thinking. And then the last one that I just finished is Learning to Live from the Inside Out, why your heart matters more than what you do. So those are the 4 studies that people have gone through either themselves or with other people. There's both teaching, a video, audio, and a workbook. Or I also have a book called Unhitching from the Crazy Train, Finding Rest in a World You Can't Control. That book also has questions at the end of each chapter. And that will be my final book. I will never write another book. That was a terrible idea to begin with, and I will never do that again. So that is my swan song. But my greatest hits, basically everything I ever say, which I only ever say the same thing over and over again, it's all in the book. Oh, and we also have, if you go to the website, I have a podcast called Head to Heart. And there's also stuff on our website, blogs, etc.
Julie, as a counselor, you know what happens when you say never to God, don't you?
Well, that's how, I said, I was always told, you need to write a book. And I always used to say, I would rather have a 4th child. And yes, lo and behold. But of course, that book got birthed because I had Jennifer Phillips writing it with me. I mean, she basically wrote it. I just talked it because I'm a talker, not a writer.
It's a great book. Okay, if anybody has any questions for us about salvation, clearly Todd and I are here at any time that we would love to talk to y'all more about what Julie was talking about, the gospel tonight. That is why we exist as a ministry, is to bring people to Christ and then to help disciple them once they get there. And we're being discipled by people like Julie along the way. And we're so thankful for you, Julie. This has been amazing. We could talk to you till midnight, but I know we want to respect your time. So thank you so much. It was phenomenal.
Well, it's the second half of This Is Us is on. So, I got to get to that.
Gotcha. Thanks again, Julie. Thanks everybody for joining in tonight. We will make the recording available, and hope you guys have a great rest of the evening. Thanks everybody.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, you got it.